The rain slashed across Evelyn's face like shards of glass. She stumbled backward onto the slick shoulder of the highway, clutching her handbag as the black SUV's taillights vanished into the storm. Her cheek throbbed where Melissa's diamond ring had cut her skin. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth. "You better remember this, old woman." Melissa's voice echoed over the roar of the storm. "You pull this again, and you'll be sleeping in a dumpster." Evelyn stared after the car, the red lights dissolving into a blur of rain. Her son, her own David, hadn't even looked back. For 69 years she'd been many things, a mother, a wife, a caregiver. But tonight, she was nothing more than a burden tossed into the storm. She pressed a trembling hand to her burning cheek and whispered, "What did I do so wrong?" The memory crashed over her like thunder. Just that afternoon, she'd arrived at David's house for Liam's 6th birthday. The smell of her homemade pot roast still lingered in her coat. She had risen at dawn to cook his favorite meal, the same recipe her late husband used to love. It took 2 city buses and almost 2 hours, but seeing her grandson's face light up was worth every mile. David had frowned the moment he saw her at the door. "Mom, I told you we'd pick you up. Why would you take the bus again?" "I didn't want to trouble you," she'd said softly, holding up the warm containers. "I made Liam's favorite." Melissa appeared in the hallway, perfectly dressed as always, her lips tightening. "Evelyn, we talked about this. We're trying to keep Liam on a balanced, clean diet. All that salt and butter, it's not healthy for him." Evelyn smiled through the sting in her chest. "It's just one meal, honey. It's his birthday." Before Melissa could reply, little Liam ran out, squealing, "Grandma. Did you bring the roast?" He hugged her knees. Melissa's hand shot out to pull him back. "Go wash your hands first, sweetheart," she said, lowering her voice. "And please, Evelyn, stop spoiling him." Dinner that night was at a downtown restaurant where the cheapest dish cost more than Evelyn's weekly grocery bill. Liam barely looked up from his tablet while David and Melissa talked about work. Evelyn sat quietly, watching the boy poke at his food, wishing she could take him home for a real meal, something warm and made with love, not precision. On the drive back, rain hammered the windshield. Evelyn sat in the back seat, watching streetlights smear across the glass. Liam was asleep beside her, his small hand resting in hers. "Look at him," Melissa said from the front. "He can't even sleep alone anymore. He's too dependent." Evelyn's voice came out tired but firm. "Children need comfort, not rules. It's normal for him to want closeness." Melissa twisted around, eyes flashing. "Normal? You think you know everything because you raised David in the dark ages. Times have changed." David sighed. "Mom, Melissa studied child psychology. Maybe let her handle this." Evelyn's fingers clenched around her purse. "Handle this? He's 6, not a science project." "Enough." David's shout filled the car. "You criticize everything we do. You never stop." The car jerked as he pulled over. Evelyn barely had time to catch her breath before his hand lashed out. The sharp crack of his palm against her cheek silenced the world. "Get out," he said coldly. She stared at him, rainwater streaking down the window. "David, please." "I said get out." He opened the door, grabbed her arm, and pulled her into the rain. Her knees hit the pavement, pain shooting through her leg. He tossed her handbag beside her. Melissa's window rolled down just long enough for her final words, venom dripping with every syllable. Then the SUV sped away, its headlights swallowed by the storm. For a long moment, Evelyn couldn't move. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, a river of light and noise. Her body shivered uncontrollably. When she finally forced herself to stand, she began walking toward a faint glow in the distance, a rest stop, maybe. Her shoes squelched with each step. By the time she stumbled through the glass doors of the convenience store, she was soaked, trembling, and feverish. The young clerk gasped. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Evelyn tried to speak, but her knees gave out. The world dimmed to black. When she woke, she was wrapped in blankets on a narrow cot. A woman sat beside her, offering a steaming mug of water. "You're safe now," she said gently. "I'm Diana, the night manager. You collapsed at the rest stop. We called for an ambulance, but the storm slowed everything down." Evelyn tried to sit up. "I don't need an ambulance." Diana frowned. "You were walking alone in a thunderstorm. You need rest." "What happened?" The words spilled out before Evelyn could stop them, every insult, every humiliation, the sting of her son's hand. By the time she finished, Diana's face was red with anger. "They left you on the highway?" she said, disbelief giving way to fury. "If my son ever did that to me, he'd regret it for the rest of his life." Evelyn managed a weak smile. "It was my fault. I interfered too much." "Bull," Diana snapped. "You're his mother. They don't get to throw you away because you care." Days passed. Diana brought her soup, helped her replace her soaked clothes, and called her "Rumi" with a wink. When Evelyn's fever finally broke, the two women sat together watching the morning sun light up the parking lot. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt seen. "I've decided something," she said over dinner one night. "I'm done living for everyone else." Diana's brows rose. "What do you mean?" "I've saved every penny for David's future. Never for mine. But I'm 70 this year, and I want to see the world before I die." Diana grinned. "Then do it. Go somewhere warm. My cousin Carolyn runs a bed and breakfast in Santa Fe. I'll call her." A week later, Evelyn withdrew her savings, $7,000. Enough to start again. Diana drove her to the station at dawn. "You saved my life," Evelyn said, hugging her tight. "Then make it count," Diana replied. 3 months later, the sun over Santa Fe bathed everything in gold. Evelyn sat by a duck pond, her new short hair dancing in the breeze. She'd visited the Grand Canyon, learned to pay with her phone, even joined a group of retirees planning a winter trip to Florida. Carolyn treated her like family. Evelyn laughed more in those months than she had in years. She was in a turquoise jewelry shop one afternoon when she heard a trembling voice behind her. "Mom?" Her heart stilled. She turned. David stood there, thinner, hollow-eyed, clutching Liam's hand. Melissa hovered behind them, pale and wordless. "Grandma!" Liam cried, racing into her arms. Evelyn dropped to her knees, holding him close as tears streamed down her cheeks. David stepped forward, voice breaking. "Mom, I've been looking for you for months. I thought." Evelyn stood slowly, her gaze steady. For the first time, she saw him not as her son, but as a man who still had much to learn. "I'm okay," she said softly. "Better than okay." David's eyes filled with tears. "Please, come home." Evelyn smiled faintly, brushing Liam's hair from his face. "Sweetheart, I am home." Outside, the sun shone brighter, as if the world itself had forgiven her for finally choosing herself. The mall was alive with the hum of weekend chatter, but for Evelyn Carter, the world had gone eerily quiet. "Mom, we've been looking for you for 3 months, David said, his voice trembling. Evelyn stood still, gripping her shopping bag. Her heart thudded painfully as she took in the sight of her son, disheveled, pale, and thinner than she remembered. Melissa stood a few feet behind him, her expression strained, and little Liam clutched his father's hand, eyes wide. Evelyn drew a long breath, wiped her tears, and forced a calm smile. "I'm fine, David. You don't need to worry." Before she could say another word, David dropped to his knees. Right there in the middle of the crowded mall, he broke down. "Mom, I was wrong." His voice cracked as he sobbed openly, his shoulders shaking. "I deserve whatever happens to me. I can't live with what I did." People slowed down, whispering, pointing. Carolyn Hayes, who had been beside Evelyn, tactfully led Liam away toward a nearby pottery stall. Evelyn's throat tightened as she looked at her son kneeling before her, the same son she had once carried through the snow when he was sick, the boy who had once clung to her hand so tightly, terrified of losing her. "Get up, David," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, don't make a scene." But he didn't move. "Mom, please come home with me. These 3 months have been hell." "The police said you might be," he couldn't finish. His sobs took over. Melissa stepped forward then, her voice quiet but heavy. "Evelyn. I'm sorry. That day, I was angry. I said things I can't take back." Evelyn looked at the woman who had once screamed at her, cursed her, and left her on the roadside in the rain. Melissa's once perfect hair was dull now, her face lined from sleepless nights. Evelyn's anger faltered. The family she had once lived for no longer looked triumphant, they looked broken. "I'm not coming back," Evelyn said at last. Her voice was soft, but steady. "I've rented an apartment here in Santa Fe. I've made new friends." David looked up, disbelief clouding his eyes. You can't forgive me." Evelyn sighed. "I do forgive you, David. But I can't go back to the life I had before. I've done a lot of thinking. After your father passed, I poured everything into you. That wasn't fair to either of us. A mother shouldn't lose herself in her child." David stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. His lips parted, but no words came. "I'm staying here," Evelyn continued gently. "I'll visit when I can. And you're welcome to visit me too." Melissa burst into tears. "Evelyn, we were wrong. Liam asks for you every day. He won't eat, won't sleep, he keeps asking where Grandma went." At the mention of her grandson, Evelyn's heart softened. "I'll call him often," she said, taking out her phone. "Let's add each other on Facebook." David blinked, momentarily stunned as she expertly navigated her smartphone. "Mom, when did you learn all this?" She smiled faintly. "Just because I'm old doesn't mean I can't learn something new." They exchanged numbers and promised to video chat soon. As they turned to leave, David hesitated. "Mom, were you happy these past 3 months?" Evelyn looked out the glass skylight at the brilliant New Mexico sun. "Yes," she said honestly. "Happier than I've ever been." The look in David's eyes, guilt, wonder, and a dawning respect, was something she'd waited her whole life to see. Later that evening, Evelyn returned to her small apartment. She set down her bag of gifts, sank into her rocking chair, and watched the sunlight spill through the sheer curtains. Her phone buzzed, a message from Carolyn. "You saw your son. How did it go?" Evelyn typed back, "Calmer than I expected. They look tired." "Are you softening?" Carolyn asked. Evelyn stared at the screen. Was she? When David had knelt at her feet, she had felt pain, yes, but not the same old helplessness. What she felt was release. "No," she finally typed. "But I promised to video call with Liam." She put her phone down and began preparing dinner. The apartment was modest but bright. She had grown to love its cheerful energy, the view of the park across the street, and the quiet that didn't hurt anymore. She simmered a pot of green chili stew, a dish she'd fallen in love with in New Mexico. Just as she sat down, her phone rang. A video call, from David. Her pulse quickened. They'd agreed to call next week, not today. She answered. "Grandma." Liam's round face filled the screen. Daddy said I could call you. Her eyes filled instantly. Liam, my sweetheart. Have you eaten dinner? I want Grandma's pot roast, he pouted. David's hand appeared on his shoulder. He looked even more worn out than before. Mom, he wouldn't stop asking. Evelyn adjusted the camera to show the sunny window behind her. When you visit, I'll make it for you. Grandma, why don't you come home? Liam asked innocently. My little bed is still waiting. The question pierced her like a blade. Off camera, she heard a soft sniffle, Melissa, trying not to cry. David quickly changed the subject. Your place looks nice, he said, his voice forced steady. So bright. It's south-facing, Evelyn smiled. Gets beautiful sun all day. Look, these are my succulents. Carolyn gave me the pots. David's eyes softened. Are you managing okay? It's wonderful, she said truthfully. There's a farmer's market downstairs, and I joined a Tai Chi group at the park. I'm making friends, David. He hesitated. I'll take time off next week and come get you. Her heart clenched, but her voice stayed gentle. No, sweetheart. I want to stay here through the winter. Santa Fe is kind to me. David was silent, stunned by a firmness he wasn't used to. Melissa appeared at the edge of the screen, eyes red. Evelyn. Liam hasn't been eating well. The doctor says there's nothing wrong, just pickiness. Do you have any ideas? Evelyn blinked. The woman who once spat venom now looked desperate, pleading. Try a little ginger ale, she offered softly, then caught herself. But, of course, listen to the doctor. Melissa nodded quickly. How much? Evelyn smiled faintly. Just a few sips with dinner. It helps the stomach. They talked for a while longer, about small things, ordinary things. When Evelyn finally hung up, she felt both lighter and older. A sudden wave of dizziness hit her, and she gripped the table to steady herself. The next morning, a call came from an unknown number. Hello, may I speak with Evelyn Carter? A young woman asked. This is she. Hi, this is Linda from the Santa Fe Senior Center. Carolyn recommended you for our spring classes. We're doing registrations now, are you interested? Evelyn smiled in surprise. What kind of classes? We've got watercolor, pottery, photography, even a smartphone workshop. Her heart leapt at the word watercolor. She'd always dreamed of painting. How much is the fee? With the senior discount, $100 a semester. She thought of her budget. $3,200 pension, $1,500 rent, $1,000 expenses. She used to save the rest for Liam's future. But now, she was allowed to live, wasn't she? To hell with saving, she muttered, grinning. I'm signing up. At her first class, she met Arthur, a retired art teacher. He was gentle and patient, with kind eyes and steady hands. You're new to Santa Fe? He asked. 3 months, she said. And I love it. You'll love painting here, he said. The colors of the desert will spoil you forever. During class, he gently adjusted her grip on the brush. Not so tight, let the brush breathe. His warmth stirred a memory of her late husband teaching her to write. She swallowed back a lump in her throat. When class ended, Arthur said, You have a steady hand. Have you painted before? A little. Long ago. He smiled. Come by our studio on weekends. Practice with us. He handed her a slip of paper with the address. That evening, Evelyn called Carolyn to tell her about class, but sensed something off in her friend's tone. Evelyn. David called me. They withdrew your missing person report. He said he wants you home. Evelyn's heart sank. Did you tell him where I live? No. I only said you're doing well. Thank you, Evelyn whispered. Carolyn hesitated. He also mentioned your blood pressure meds. He was worried you'd forget your refill. Evelyn froze. She had run out, and the dizziness yesterday had been worse than she'd admitted. I'll go to the clinic tomorrow, she said, forcing cheer. But tomorrow came too late. During her third watercolor class, the world tilted violently. The colors on her paper swirled into darkness. Arthur's voice echoed, distant, panicked, and then there was nothing. When she woke, the ceiling was white and cold. A nurse hovered over her. Mrs. Carter, you're in the hospital. You had a mild stroke. They had tried to call her emergency contact, but couldn't reach David. Fortunately, her phone listed Carolyn, who rushed over immediately. Arthur came later, carrying a thermos of porridge and a stack of handmade cards. You've got fans waiting for you to come back, he said, smiling softly. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Arthur. Later that day, she asked Carolyn to call David. He answered before the first ring ended. What hospital? What room? We're coming now. By dawn, David and Melissa burst into her hospital room. David's eyes were bloodshot, his voice shaking. Mom, are you okay? Evelyn smiled weakly. Just a small stroke. I'll be fine. When the doctor explained she'd need long-term care, David immediately said, You're coming home with us. Evelyn's instinct was to refuse, but then she saw Melissa, tears streaming down her face, clutching a fruit basket like it was armor. Please, she said quietly. Come home. Liam misses you so much. That night, Evelyn overheard them arguing in the hallway. She said she wants to stay here, Melissa whispered. She needs someone to take care of her. David hissed back. When I was a kid and sick, she carried me through a blizzard. I owe her everything. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. He remembered. When David returned, his voice was gentler. Mom, do you really not want to come home? I don't want to be a burden, she said softly. He took her hand. You're not a burden. Let me be your son again. Her defenses crumbled. Okay, she whispered. But I need my own space. And I'm not giving up my art class. David smiled through his tears. Deal. Melissa appeared then, wiping her eyes. We'll move you into the master bedroom, it's south-facing, perfect for recovery. Evelyn stared, speechless. The same woman who once called her useless was now offering her their prized room. Before she was discharged, Arthur stopped by with a small gift, a rolled-up scroll and a note tucked inside a watercolor book, call anytime. In the car back home, Evelyn unrolled the painting. It was a single plum blossom, blooming alone in winter. Tears spilled onto the delicate paper. Mom, David said from the driver's seat, glancing at her in the mirror. That Arthur guy, he seems nice. Evelyn flushed. He's just my teacher, she said quickly, then laughed at her own defensiveness. As the car sped down the highway, she gazed out the window. 3 months ago, she had been abandoned on a road just like this, alone, cold, and heartbroken. Now she was going home, carrying new friendships, a new passion, and a fragile peace. When they pulled into the familiar driveway, David turned to her. Mom, wait here. I'll carry you upstairs. Evelyn smiled and shook her head. No. The doctor said a little walking's good for me. She took Liam's small hand as they stepped into the elevator. He squeezed it tightly, afraid she might disappear again. As the doors slid open to their floor, Evelyn took a deep breath. 3 months ago, she had left this building in tears. Today, she returned not as a burden, but as a woman reborn. The apartment door swung open, and Evelyn Carter froze. The heavy brown curtains that once dimmed the living room were gone, replaced with soft, linen ones that danced lightly in the breeze, just like the ones she'd chosen for her Santa Fe apartment. A white orchid bloomed on the coffee table beside a woven placemat she instantly recognized from Sedona. Her chest tightened. "Your room's this way, Mom," David said, leading her down the hall. When he opened the master bedroom door, Evelyn's breath caught. It was her Santa Fe haven, reborn. The same sandy-colored bedding, the same wooden rocking chair by the window, even the small clay pots with tiny succulents she adored. On the walls hung enlarged prints of her own landscape photos, sunsets over red mesas, winding desert trails, and the wide, endless sky she'd fallen in love with. She couldn't speak. "It was Melissa's idea," David said softly. "She thought you'd miss Santa Fe. We wanted you to feel at home." Melissa stood awkwardly in the doorway, twisting her wedding ring. "I hope it's to your liking. Everything's new." Evelyn reached for her hand. "It's beautiful. Thank you." Before either could say more, Liam burst into the room. "Grandma. Daddy said I couldn't peek. It's a surprise." His little grin melted her heart. Dinner that night was takeout, but Melissa had made one small dish herself, a bowl of warm porridge, nearly identical to the one Diana Brooks used to bring Evelyn in Santa Fe. That thoughtful touch made her throat tighten. After dinner, Liam begged for a bedtime story. Evelyn settled into the rocking chair with him nestled in her lap and began to tell him about her adventures in the Southwest. "Grandma, are the mountains really painted?" he asked, eyes wide. "They truly are," she smiled. Grandma saw them herself. She pulled up her phone to show him pictures. From the kitchen doorway, Melissa paused mid-dish and quietly listened. David, who'd been scrolling through his phone, put it down and joined them. "The first cup of tea," Evelyn said, showing Liam a photo of a tea house she'd visited, "is bitter, like the struggles when you're young. The second is sweet, like the joys of middle age. And the third is deep and complex, like wisdom in old age." David looked thoughtful. "Kind of like life," he said. Evelyn smiled. "Exactly." For the first time in years, she saw something different in her son's eyes, peace, maybe even humility. That night, she messaged Carolyn Hayes. "Arrived safely. They made my room look just like Santa Fe." Carolyn replied almost instantly. "That's so sweet of them. Diana says hello." The mention of Diana warmed her heart. Evelyn opened the scroll Diana had given her before she left and reread the tiny inscription. "The winter plum, tempered by frost, grows more fragrant." The next morning, she woke at 6, as she always had. Melissa was already in the kitchen. "Mom, you're up early," Melissa said, surprised. "It's a habit," Evelyn smiled. "I walk every morning in Santa Fe." Melissa hesitated. "Well, if you'd like, I could walk with you. There's a garden down the block." Evelyn nodded, touched. The morning air was crisp, the path lined with gold-tipped trees. They walked quietly, then Melissa spoke in a trembling voice. "Mom. I'm so sorry." Evelyn stopped. "It's in the past." "No, it's not," Melissa said, tears spilling. "I think about that day every night. I shouldn't have said those things. Liam kept asking if it was his fault you left." Evelyn hugged her gently. "Oh, sweetheart. Of course it wasn't." When they returned, David was clumsily frying eggs. His relief was visible when he saw them together. "Mom," he said carefully, "what are your plans today?" "I thought I'd stop by the community center," she said. "They're always looking for new instructors. I could teach the ladies the dances I learned in Santa Fe." He blinked. "I'll drive you." "No need." I still have my bus pass. He rummaged through a drawer and found it. You remember how to use it? She laughed. David, that card was my best friend for 3 years after your father passed. At the center, the women welcomed her like an old friend. She told them stories of Santa Fe, taught them a few new line dances, and even got invited to lead a performance at next week's town event. On her way home, she refilled her prescription and picked up herbs at the market. Melissa had mentioned Liam's appetite was poor. That evening, when he refused dinner again, Evelyn quietly brewed a light herbal tea. After a few sips, Liam began to eat. "Mom," Melissa whispered, "thank you." And so, life settled into something new. Evelyn wasn't just a mother-in-law anymore, she was a woman rediscovering herself. She taught dance twice a week, painted every evening, and on weekends made Liam his favorite pot roast, though now with less salt and butter. One evening, David came home early and overheard her video calling someone. "Relax your wrist," came a gentle male voice. "That's perfect, Evelyn. You're improving fast." David froze at the doorway. At dinner, he asked casually, "Mom, you and Mr. Arthur, sorry, Diana's cousin, right, talk often?" "We have a video lesson every week," she said, smiling. "Painting keeps me sane." Melissa's chopsticks paused, but she said nothing. That night, Evelyn overheard their whispers in the living room. "She's different," David said softly. "Happier. Healthier." Melissa murmured, "She's even kinder to us. But, it's like she doesn't need us anymore." Evelyn stood quietly in the hallway, her heart aching yet proud. Her son was finally learning, love wasn't possession. It was letting go. The next morning, she offered to teach them both to paint. Soon, the three of them, and Liam, were huddled around the coffee table painting chicks. "What made you start painting, Mom?" David asked. "I always wanted to," she said, guiding his hand. "But between work, your father, and the house, there was never time." "And now?" Melissa asked. Evelyn smiled softly. "Now, it's time to live for myself." David's eyes filled with tears. "You deserve that, Mom." Months passed in a rhythm of harmony and new boundaries. When David tried to micromanage her schedule, Evelyn would gently remind him, "I'll ask for help if I need it." Rain or shine, she went to the center. On one Thursday, she picked up Liam from preschool after choir practice. "Grandma, look at my dinosaur," he said proudly. But his face fell. "I pushed another kid. Teacher wants to talk to Mom." At dinner, Melissa began to scold him. "Liam. We don't." "Melissa," Evelyn interrupted gently, "can I tell a story?" And she told one, about a tiger cub who hurt others until a wise owl taught him to see beauty in everyone. Liam's eyes softened. "So, maybe I could tell that boy his dinosaur was cool." "That would be a good start," Evelyn said, kissing his forehead. That night, Melissa told David quietly, "Your mom's stories work better than my lectures." David chuckled. "She raised me without ever shouting once." Then, softly, "I wish I'd remembered that before." A week later, David announced a family trip to a nature preserve. On the drive, the air was tense, David silent, Melissa overly cheerful. When they arrived, autumn was in full glory. Golden leaves carpeted the ground. "Mom, let me take a picture," Melissa said, smiling through the camera lens. David quietly stepped beside her, and as she clicked the shutter, he wrapped his arm around his mother's shoulders. Evelyn's startled face melted into a smile. Later, she caught sight of David smoking alone on the balcony, his first cigarette in years. Melissa went out to him, calm and steady. Through the window, Evelyn saw them talking. When they came back, David looked lighter. At dinner, he declared, "From now on, Sundays are family day." The rest of the week, everyone lives their own life. And when your friend visits, Mom, I'll cook. That night, Arthur, Diana's cousin, video called to show her a painting inspired by her stories. They talked and laughed for nearly an hour, unaware that David had quietly opened her door and then backed away. The next morning, he asked with tired eyes, Mom, you two talk late, huh? She smiled. He's just a friend, David. He taught me how to see beauty again. David's hands trembled slightly. I'm just scared. Of what? She asked. That you don't need me anymore, he whispered. Evelyn stood and hugged him. A mother never stops needing her child. It just changes. Peace returned. Melissa sought her advice more often, David gave her space. Evelyn even got invited back to Santa Fe for the Senior Center's anniversary reunion, organized by Carolyn Hayes. Will Arthur be there? David asked. Yes. He's a guest speaker. Mom, he hesitated. Are you happy? She smiled. I truly am. He handed her an envelope marked for treats. Inside was a plane ticket. David, this is too much. You're worth it, he said simply. You taught me what love really means. Melissa gifted her a phone stand that night. So Liam can see you better on video calls. At the station the next morning, they all came to see her off. Liam clung to her legs. Grandma, bring me pictures of the big mountains. I will, she promised, kissing his cheek. As the train pulled away, she waved at them through the window. David's arm was around Melissa, Liam waving wildly. Home, she realized, wasn't a cage, it was a harbor. A place you could always return to. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arthur. See you tomorrow. Can't wait to hear your stories. She smiled. I have plenty to share. The Santa Fe sun streamed through the hotel window the next morning. She checked her phone, 3 new messages. David, Mom, did you get there okay? Liam drew you something. It was a colorful sketch labeled, Grandma. She laughed and texted back, tell Liam his drawing beats mine by a mile. Melissa, don't forget your medicine, Mom. The weather changes fast. Evelyn smiled. That kind of care would have been unthinkable months ago. Arthur, see you at the center. I have a surprise. At 10, the reunion began. Carolyn greeted her with open arms. Evelyn, you look wonderful. Then Arthur appeared, holding a scroll. This is for you, he said, unrolling a painting of a peony, radiant and alive. Beneath it, in delicate calligraphy, tempered by frost, grows more fragrant. Arthur, she whispered, fingertips trembling. Not nearly as precious as the one you gave me, he said, his ears turning pink. Carolyn teased, he stayed up for nights working on it. Arthur sputtered. Don't listen to her. Everyone laughed, then, suddenly, Evelyn clutched her chest. A sharp pain shot through her arm. The room blurred. She heard her name being shouted, saw Arthur's face filled with panic, and then, darkness. When she woke, the antiseptic air told her she was in a hospital. A young doctor leaned over. Ma'am, can you hear me? You had a heart attack, but you're stable now. My phone, she whispered. Arthur appeared at her bedside, holding it gently. Right here. Carolyn's handling the paperwork. I brought your things. The doctor looked between them. And you are? Arthur blushed faintly. A friend, he said. But Evelyn knew better. He was part of her story now, one that had taken her from heartbreak to freedom, from being needed to being loved simply for who she was. And for the first time in years, Evelyn Carter felt whole. I picked up my phone, my son's name glowing on the screen, David Carter. Just seeing it made my chest ache. It brought back that awful night on the highway, the rain, the shouting, the silence that followed. My thumb hovered over the call button for what felt like forever before I finally pressed it. "Mom." David's voice was bright, upbeat. "How's the reunion? Everyone driving you crazy yet?" "Yes," I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. "It's wonderful. I'm just at the hospital for a quick checkup. The doctor's suggesting an angiogram." The other end went quiet. I heard rustling, then another voice, Melissa's. "Mom, what hospital? We're coming right now." No, don't be silly," I said weakly. "Liam's got school in the morning." "Mom." David's tone hardened, the same one he'd used when he caught me sneaking an extra cookie when he was 8. "Tell me the truth. What's going on?" My throat tightened. "It's my heart," I whispered. "It's serious." 10 minutes later, my friend Diana Brooks burst into the hospital room, breathless. "Evelyn," she said, gripping my hand. "David's on his way. He told me to tell you not to worry. He's got everything under control." Her words, his words, made the tears I'd been holding back finally fall. The same son who had once driven away from me in anger was now racing through the night to reach me. The procedure was scheduled for the next morning. Diana insisted on staying even though I told her to go home. Late that night, the pain hit again, sharp, unrelenting. I curled up, biting my lip to keep from crying out. "Evelyn." Diana was beside me instantly, her calm eyes filled with worry. She pressed the call button, then took my hand. "Breathe with me, okay? Just breathe." After the nurse administered a painkiller, I heard Diana murmuring to the doctor, "Her son's driving in from another state. She's strong. She just doesn't like to show it." Her words tugged at a memory, David at 10, sick with the flu, me sponging him down through the night, pretending to be fine in the morning so he wouldn't see my exhaustion. He'd always seen through me. When I opened my eyes again, it wasn't Diana beside my bed, it was David. "Mom," he said softly. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face drawn. "You scared me half to death." "You made it," I said faintly. "Did you drive all night?" He smiled, a tired, crooked smile. 3 speeding tickets. Totally worth it." I saw the wrinkles in his shirt, the unshaven jaw, the exhaustion in his eyes. "The doctors told me everything," he said. "You'll need the angiogram. Maybe a stent. They said they need a family member to sign the consent." The irony hit me hard. I'd once signed his field trip slips and permission forms. Now he was signing mine. I smiled weakly. "I'm sorry to trouble you." "Don't say that." His voice cracked. "You're my mother." Before the procedure, the doctor explained all the risks. David listened closely, asking sharp, thoughtful questions. His hand trembled as he signed the papers. "Don't be scared," I told him, my own fear hidden behind a mother's calm. "I'm not," he said, forcing a shaky grin. "You're the bravest person I know." The angiogram revealed a serious blockage. As they wheeled me away, I caught one last glimpse of him down the hall, tense and pale, gripping his phone like a lifeline. The surgery went well. When I woke, Melissa was at my bedside with little Liam, who ran toward me, only to be gently stopped. "Easy, honey. Grandma's sore." "I'm not sore," I smiled, beckoning him closer. "Come give Grandma a hug." Melissa's eyes were red from crying. "You scared us, Mom." David stood behind her with a stack of forms. "It's all taken care of," he said. "Private room, best cardiologist in the building." That night, when everyone left, David stayed. I woke to find him sitting by the window, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. "David?" I whispered. He jerked upright. Mom. You need water. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. His voice broke. I almost lost you again. He knelt beside me, clutching my hand. When I left that night, when I walked away from you in the rain, how was that any different from what Dad used to do? His words hit like a blow. My late husband, his father, had been a man whose temper turned dangerous after a drink. David had been just a boy when he tried to protect me, and he'd paid for it. I reached out, my fingers trembling. You are nothing like him. He shook his head, tears falling. I hit you, Mom. I shouted. I became him. I ignored the pain in my chest and pulled him into my arms. You came back for me, I whispered. He never would have. That's the difference. And for the first time in 30 years, my son wept in my arms like the child he once was. The next day, Diana came with her ever-present thermos of soup. She froze when she saw David, but he immediately stood and shook her hand. I've heard a lot about you, he said. Thank you for looking after my mom. It was my privilege, Diana said softly, blushing. I just made some soup for her heart. Over the next few days, she visited daily, with new recipes, hand-drawn cards, and quiet encouragement. Slowly, David's suspicion melted into respect. He began asking her about nutrition, about heart health. They started to laugh together.